So what is this about us losing and losing? When we take a realistic look into where Western nations are headed, it's dark. It's really grim. In recent years, evil forces have grown stronger across the world and fast. We'll talk more about that, but in the end, evil ultimately destroys itself, and so there is light in the more distant future. VidarReturns. Today we are specifically going to talk on Western nations. When we speak of the worst evils, we are talking about those things which destroy our lineage and promote a more genetically inferior people. Our nations are plagued by broken families, welcoming homosexuality in the military, teaching sexual degeneracy in the school system, and actively suppressing good people based on, quote, social justice. All of this didn't manifest magically out of nowhere in recent years. Some of the processes for it started back over a century ago. Processes of breaking traditions of the family with the encouragement of things like women in higher education, women in politics, and women in the workplace. The point must be made that women always existed in these areas to some degree. There were always women in the workplace, in universities. There were even women politicians before women could vote, and these women politicians were voted in by men 100%. But they were rare. A common household would have the man going out to work in the field or the factory or the market, and the woman take care of the home and the children. The focus was more on family, as it should be, and the natural order of our survival. Women had their, quote, role, and men had their role, and community leaders had their role as well. Contrary to modern-day propaganda, women had great liberty to be in many fields of society, and some women did take positions outside the home, but society's healthy focus on family is what made that a rarity. A healthy focus on family is the recognition that, regardless of a woman's background or education, the most valuable position she can ever fulfill is that of a mother or caregiver. The role of a mother is of incredible beauty and value. Just to quickly note, this initial decline of family focus happened under Christian society. With all due respect, this did not happen in almost any non-Christian nations, and this terrible failure under Christian leadership opened the door to much more erosion of family that was to come. Slowly the shift began to come away from family. In decades to follow, this would be further fueled by state-provided welfare and birth contraceptives. A real wigtow, we might say. Women going their own way. And what happens when you damage one of the most fundamental pillars of society? Today we can recognize the manifestation of this movement through the phrase, the strong and independent woman. There is nothing inherently problematic with a woman being strong. In fact, being strong, fit, and physically healthy are incredibly valuable traits for any woman. But we know that's not what was ever meant by this phrase, which is often extremely used by obese females. No, the phrase, quote, strong and independent woman is a signifier of separation of woman from man, child, family, and moral community. A permission slip for a woman to disavow her life purpose and seek hedonistic gratifications and sexual promiscuity, sexual partners. Going back to the 1900s, we can see other pillars of societal health further eroded. Examples include the rise of homosexuality, consumerism, and widespread consumption of drugs. As noted in our previous video on gays, simply being homosexual is not inherently evil. Homosexuality is a defect, and there have been homosexual people with us since the beginning of time. Evil is the promotion of degeneracy. Evil is pushing public acceptance of homosexuality as a norm. Something such as a pride parade for homosexuality is truly evil. To take pride in degeneracy is a corrupt mentality. In modern day, public media has twisted many people's perception so much that someone is practically viewed as being more virtuous for being homosexual. This is a mental illness that has infected our nations. Consumerism is another mental illness harming our nations, a problem created from excess resources and a lack of moral compass in guiding us with those resources. Consumerism destroys our valuable resources and our even more valuable time in a diversion from righteous behavior in life. Wasting time and money on products, media, and games, people watching movies or playing games hours and days and weeks on end. These work toward destroying a person's discipline and feeding unfruitful self-gratification. Consumerism can also be buying endless products in an effort to fill a void in ourselves or impress others. All commercial distractions from our life purpose. The watching of movies and dramas are especially insidious because we are inclined to normalize that which we see, and so they work towards distorting our perception of reality. The widespread consumption of drugs is also linked to consumerism. We are referring here to both recreational and pharmaceutical drugs. A century ago, people would occasionally drink alcohol or have a tobacco smoke. There was no such thing as chain smoking. Today we still have alcohol and cigarettes, but there are way more drugs available as well. The youth are on recreational drugs like meth, crack, and others that people in previous generations couldn't have even imagined, and both the young and old are increasingly taking pharmaceutical drugs. Back in 2010, 80% of people over age 65 were on some regular medication. Link in the description. This is not representative of a healthy society. These are only some of the major ways our nations have grown unhealthy due to losing our moral compass. Our foundations for a good nation has been severely degraded, which brings us to today. Today, the least moral individuals have gained influence in the most powerful institutions. The schools teaching children about sex, the universities teaching cultural Marxism, politicians pandering to who they can give the most free goodies, and large corporations monopolizing and profiting from feeding the instant gratification of a hedonist society. Evil forces have gained great power, and lack of morals within our nations has only multiplied their power in the last decade. They continue to grow stronger and are working daily to manipulate the legal system in their favor. We have seen large technology companies use their power to censor truth, influence public opinion, and influence elections. This is a wake-up call. Don't let yourself be fooled into a mindset of false positivity by the uprising and protests that are happening around the world. It's good that resistance is happening, but the tide is not yet turning. If you've been paying attention to the news from Australia during the virus scare propaganda, you will have seen their government has put a tight stranglehold around their citizens' necks. Right now, most Western nations are seeking ways to mandate these unnatural injections for the whole population. Some people are trying to resist, as we should resist, but we must also acknowledge how we arrived here and where we are going. Evil forces have gained power now, and they aren't going away. They are only getting stronger, and they will continue to get stronger because they are a reflection of the nation. Hedonism and self-gratification. Only moral leadership that includes discipline and connecting with nature can save a people. The title of this recording is Bad News, but not a pessimistic message. It's actually good news because nature is working and it doesn't fail. But this is a realistic message. It will take time for good to prevail. And how will good people be saved? Not by magic and not through superstition, but through our own actions. It is through virtue of being good that we will survive. Promoting good among ourselves and loved ones is more important now than ever. Those of evil, those of degeneracy, those of hedonism always eventually destroy themselves. It is inevitable. We can't fight a hurricane of destruction with our words or our fists. Instead, we try to find a safe shelter or get out of its way until it passes. The hurricane will eventually take itself out. Our focus must be on avoiding that degenerate path and improving ourselves and those close to us, creating communities of strength. Part of the final message here is to resist, but within reason. We shouldn't go insane about a mandatory mask or a mandatory shot if it comes to that. The wicked would love nothing more than to destroy our lives. If they force mandates on you or your loved ones, know that in the end our people will survive because of who we are. Our best chances of overcoming either a virus or a poisonous shot is through staying in optimal health. We have many more areas of our lives to improve and stay focused on, and they can't take them all away. They aren't forcing us to eat unnatural and processed foods. They aren't forcing propaganda into our homes. They aren't forcing us to waste our lives on leisure activities or substances. If any of those things are happening, then it's because we are doing it to ourselves. We are the children of the earth. We are the righteous children of our ancestors. None of us are perfect, but we must always be striving to do the best we can to increase the fitness and survival of our people. Anyone that shares or promotes our principles are our brothers and sisters and community. We need to practice discipline in every area of our life and be a role model for the next generation. Thanks for tuning in to this month's episode. To connect directly with us online for chat and counsel, add us through the app session. Click the All Links URL in the description. If you haven't yet, you can see our previous recording titled 100 Years Beyond COVID, A Sick Future to Come, where we explore the future direction of modern society and the last days before our next civilization collapse. Link for that in the description. Also follow now to stay updated with all our content. We're on Steemit, Gab, Minds, and ODYSEE networks, and live chat on the Matrix and Session networks. Links for everything in the description. We send out love to all our brothers and sisters. Stay blessed. VidarReturns.